Bells at 7 o'clock, and we'll call the Village of North Bennington meeting to order. We have several things on the agenda tonight. Let me just pull up the agenda so that I don't have that open here. The first being the review and approval of the minutes from May 7th, 2019. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that, or is there any objection to us approving the minutes? Hearing no objection, that will be approved by unanimous consent and entered into our record. The warrants, we have a payroll warrant, unless there wasn't an update, right? It's just the one?
No update.
So $9,656.42 for the payment of the employees of the village, as well as a few per diems for work that was done during the week of May 31st, June 7th, and June 14th. Any questions on that payroll warrant?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion carries by unanimous consent. And we also have our regular warrant for the payment of the bills. Just take a second to review that, please.
Now it's time to ask. Is the Appalachian Marine for almost $6,000, is that, what is that?
Road salt.
Road salt, okay, thank you.
I don't know
Two
why.
bills. We just didn't have them before.
Okay, that was the New England one too? The both Marine?
No, New England Marine is the fire department.
Okay.
And it is for an SF-04 Imperial 1500 suit.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's a cold water rescue gear, maybe? That's my guess.
I won't argue with that.
And Lafayette?
It was prime season.
Is the Lafayette bill the AC?
Very.
Oh, the guardrail, right?
Is any of that a grant project? No, but the Overley Road part is.
Yeah, paperwork should be
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the warrant? Entertain a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $61,421.20.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any objection to the warrant being issued in that amount? Hearing none, it'll pass unanimously. Sign. Okay. So we have a few items for discussion today. One that I think we might be able to address kind of quickly is there was a question when Memorial Day came up. And then we were having the parade in the village. Somebody had asked me about flags up and down Main Street, and seeing if that might be be a possibility for our village like it is in Bennington and, you know, a lot of other villages and towns. It's a fairly easy process to sort of put those little flag holders on posts. The question that I had was, do we really have posts in the same area that other towns and villages do? Because I think it's traditionally on the lamp posts, right? But we don't have lamp posts going up Main Street, but.
And I don't think you can put them on telephone poles or power poles.
So is that, have we looked at that ever before to your knowledge, or?
No.
Is that, so without saying whether we can or we can't, is that something that we could consider doing? I mean, I think it would definitely look nice for Memorial Day, Labor Day, and other, you know,
We just
Fourth of
have
July.
to buy all the stuff, we gotta look where the telephone poles are.
yeah,
You know, I know there's one over, we'll just say across the street from Kevin's in the parking lot, it's 10 feet back
Yeah.
from the road, we wouldn't want to put one there.
yeah.
I think first is to find out whether or not you can
Yeah,
put
you
anything
can.
on a utility pole. I'm pretty sure.
You're not supposed to.
Well, that's all they have in Chester, you go down through there on every telephone pole.
Okay,
You know, I don't think that's the huge hurdle, it's whether they're all there. I mean, we get a lot of poles that we drive around going up Main Street. I mean, we can put one on every one that makes sense, too.
okay. Right. So it sounds like it's a possibility then, and I think that's all we needed was just, if we could do it, then maybe we should do it. It's not that much of a cost, and it definitely adds to the, especially a parade and
The
holiday.
parade. Mhm.
Okay, great. There was also, I think I can just, I'm just gonna move the one agenda item from down low up to the top, about the seating at Kevin's Restaurant, because I don't think that's gonna take too much time either, but, do we have somebody, representing Kevin's Restaurant tonight to just sort of, give an idea of what the project entails so that the board could respond to it?
Yeah, my name's Jamie Hill, and my wife Penny, we're the owners of Kevin's.
Welcome, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. So we were looking at maybe both sides of the, I mean, I have pictures, I don't know if that's something that you would like to see.
That'd be great.
This is just someone, if you're out into the street, it'd be the left side.
Okay, yeah,
Just giving you the footage. So if you're out in the street, that'd be the left side.
Want to tell them how we did it for the Memorial Day parade for the fire department?
Yeah,
It was out there, that kind of gave us the idea.
Yeah, that's how we did it, when we were doing the Memorial Day kind of thing, we were like putting chairs and stuff out there, and we were like, oh geez, maybe we could throw some outside seating there. This is the right side of the building, in between the pizza place and ours, but underneath, we're underneath everything. And that's the front. I'm just giving you the... And we're maybe thinking of maybe 8 and 8 or 6 and 6, like maybe 12 or, you know,
okay.
or 18, we're not sure, just because we don't want to obstruct the entrances going in and out, you know. And that's like looking from up this way down on the sidewalk, so we wouldn't be obstructing the sidewalk at all.
Yeah, so everything you're thinking of would be basically under your overhangs,
Yes.
and then even if it came out to the side a little bit on the concrete area?
Yes, it would be under the concrete over here, but not on the sidewalk. We wouldn't be obstructing the sidewalk at all.
My position would be, as long as you're not in the 5-foot sidewalk, then there's no issue as far as the village is
Yeah,
concerned.
and can I ask a question? Because I know they've got some like bistro tables next door.
Right.
I mean, I assume if it's, because it's within, it's actually technically probably within your property. I certainly don't have an issue with it, because you're really not changing anything.
I just want to make sure, I
I think that the idea of them coming to the trustees was that it really is as, I think if I'm remembering the emails correctly, that, and maybe Mr. Damon could help me out here, but
Sure.
I think that when you applied for a zoning, a permit to do that, that they said that as long as there's no issue with the trustees, that you can just proceed with that
Okay.
process, and there wouldn't be any, I don't want to speak on behalf of the sort of dining element of this and zoning element of this, because that's not really in our purview, but as far as the effect on the municipal systems and
I understand,
and the passage through and.
I have two comments. One is whether or not the fire chief or anything else would have a concern about
Okay.
impeding the exit of the building. And then I know in other establishments, there are rules about liquor and how, perhaps you can speak to this, because there are places outside of your building you can have alcohol, and a part of the porch you cannot, as I understood it.
There's two really strange things that I can think of that apply to Pangea. One is, I think there's actually somewhere in the ordinance, some arcane rule where you can't have the drinks visible from the road, hence the hedge at Pangea, so that you can put them on the table and it would be easily visible. I'm not sure if that's still around, but David would be the one to ask, because I think he's the one that mentioned that to me. But it was something we had to address. And the liquor inspector will want to comment on, it was something I would check into, they'll want to comment on if you open the footprint, which you can do, because we did that on the porch of Pangea. It's 24 hours a day and then considered part of the interior of the restaurant, so from a liability standpoint, it changes it. Those are the only two things that pop in mind. That
Would it be Jason Homer? I mean, who do you?
Yeah, that's what I would ask. I think he's the one who told us. I mean, we ended up putting in a hedge and a fence, and it was no big deal.
Okay.
Or like a flower box or
But
something.
it was a fence that actually blocks that one side of the porch off, and the other side, you, as I understand it, is not allowed.
Right.
Where it's open.
Right, and the hedge gets us past technically what's visible, it needs to be a certain height. That included interior and exterior.
So in this case, it would be visible, so that would be something.
Yes.
I mean, again, that's your concern, it really isn't ours, that's to do with your liquor license, and maybe a town zoning ordinance or something, but.
Where is that, is that the visible from the road?
It's weird, and I can't remember, because it's been almost 20 years, but,
Is that, do you remember, is that the village?
it's something with the village. Yeah, and it was really.
So that's something we can also, if that's a village ordinance, we could actually address it and give a waiver to it for both places. I mean,
Yeah, you can totally do a variance or a waiver or something like that. I would ask David. David's the one that brought it to me, and he did
Okay.
it, and I just said, okay, whatever, we're gonna put up X, Y, Z, problem solved.
yeah,
David Monks?
Yeah, I think he would be the one to ask.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend that.
Okay, whatever I think we have to do, yeah, or whatever, you know.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned with the idea, I have absolutely no problems with it, as long as,
Well, we have a time limit on it too, I know the house across the street just got sold, so we put like an 8:30 on it, be done, out, no outside seating, with course after, like, Columbus Day weekend, we close it, we're done, we're inside. You know, of course, we're limited, you know, we're not gonna be, you know, and be, you know, respectful for the, you know, the people across the street and
Yeah.
whoever.
I personally have no problem with it.
Yeah, I don't think there's, you know, and it's always the case where, you know, we would never have any issue with you, I know that, but, you know,
Right,
when you retire 30 years from now, you know, or whatever, then the next one, and the next, so the village is, we have to sort
Oh,
of,
absolutely.
but I don't, this is not a concern presented to us, there may be.
Okay, so what's our next step? I mean, what,
I think those questions should go to, first your liquor license to find out
Jason Elmer?
what the, I assume that would be Jason, you know,
Okay.
because I do know in some places you have to actually have a barrier, anywhere you're having alcohol, there's no physical barrier, so we're going to get you in trouble.
What can't happen is open container 1 foot off of that.
Right.
I understand that. And if I have to, like, put a rope up,
You could even look at that in while you're doing that. Then that might have another fire concern. And talk to your insurance company
Just
about.
about the
I will.
the egress or the sort of getting out of
Okay,
the.
well, I'm just asking because I don't know about I'm not,
They do.
Yeah. Those questions go anywhere, like you said, your insurance company or liquor license,
Yeah.
to say, we have this area, is it okay? They'll come and look at it and tell you yes or no.
okay.
Um,
And then he mentioned another gentleman's name after Mr.
David Lumps.
No, David Morris,
He lives down in,
in Bennington.
what? So, what?
Dan, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, David was on this board.
Okay.
And for some reason had something, it just might be worth passing on. He's, lives down just behind Pangea in the stone house down there.
Yes.
Um,
Yep, okay.
Probably find him in the phone book and just explain who you are. He might have something to say, or he might say, I don't remember, whatever.
And if it is like a village ordinance,
Okay.
I would come right back to us and apply.
Just to say,
variance, and I'm sure we would, I mean, the fact that, you can drive by.
Okay, so Tom, why don't you do it first and then come back to you guys?
Don't come back to us. If everything works out on your end, go ahead and do it.
Okay, well, just take some now.
Yeah, before anyone else come back, because I think we can, obviously, we can help.
I'll go see Mr. Elmer first and then go from there and then see the other gentleman. Okay? You guys need those at all or?
Nope.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Welcome. Just continue that later.
I know we have more citizen comments, but.
Yeah, do we have some more citizen comments tonight?
I have a citizen comment.
Okay, great. Mr. Scully?
Two things about Pleasant Street, and I'm hoping this is just a little cameo, I don't want to start with a three-part mini-series, but first, thanks to Norm for putting in a guardrail. It started to look like a real street, even though it's pretty narrow. And I had a request to put out there for some time when that road, whenever it gets repaved, and I'm realizing that this is probably a lot more complicated than I'm making it sound, but I'd like to put out, maybe you could consider putting in stripes, because around the Red Mill, it's like a surrealist school of parking where you have to go find the owner of the car to get through, because there's a lot of confusion on what's road and what's private. So, thank you very much, and just want to see if it's all possible to ever get stripes on the side of the road, so that it's clear what's road and what's not road.
I think that could definitely be done, right?
It's not, it's certainly not out of the realm, and that was a street we were gonna pave this year, but there's four water services on that street that need to be repaired, or maybe three, there's not a lot of houses on it. And that's just not in the cards to get done this year through the water department, so get them to fix them, and that'll be the next one paved.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's a big improvement from a safety standpoint. Anybody else?
Any other citizen comment?
We just wanted to ask you guys about, we have at the bottom of our driveway.
Which are you?
I'm Mark.
You're Mark.
Yes.
So we were having, we knew the meeting was happening, so. Thank you guys, thank you.
Tomorrow, Norm and I actually went down there last week, so we've been down there a few times to look at it, and we're just kind of getting the lay of the land and trying to figure out things that could or couldn't be done, or what the possibilities are, but.
Where is this?
This is the, Rich Heights.
Rich Heights.
Old culvert.
No, I looked at that a long time ago.
Yep.
It's not functioning, is it?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
No, it's, there's a, you see,
Yep.
there's kind of a lake, it needs some adjustment for the water to be built to.
Yeah,
So if
I
I'm
put it in 67 years ago, but my parents owned it. And it drained from
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
the right side, and it actually went into the piping that was the sewer. But as over the years, it's dislodged, it's actually disconnected from that, it's flattened out, and it's now popping our tires. So we've gone down and hammered the metal down a bit to try to stop that, and we're trying to go around it.
I think the last time that we addressed this issue, we had said that we'd be perfectly fine to remove that culvert. And, we could even though it's a private road, that we do that at village expense, but that we can't put in new culverts on private
That's
property.
fine. We don't seem to have a flooding problem anymore down that way. That was there that many years ago.
Okay.
There was a reason they put it there, but I don't ever see it flooded. Do you?
Just if you, well, you've seen
The
it,
low spot.
it's a great big hole, but,
Yeah.
I mean, we can just look at it tomorrow, then I just want
Yeah, it's one of the things we'll discuss. When we get down there, we'll kind of talk about what all the options are.
I'm glad to hear you can remove it, that would be.
That's, yeah,
That's great.
that's fine.
That seems pretty
That's totally
straightforward.
fine.
It's, I
Should
mean,
be replaced.
You think it needs,
There's water on both sides of the driveway. The way it always, the way the water worked to, as we go through and we find these things, it was on, say on that driveway, that road that is supposed to be a through road that is not a through road anymore. On the right side, there's a low line that catches a lot of water. On the left, you go to the next house up towards the Henry Bridge, and there's an actual DI and a pipe that went across the road that was cross fixed a couple years ago. Then it's got a pipe out of that runs to that low end. Then that low end ran across the driveway that they're talking about, runs on the other side, and then there's another DI that brings it across the street. And it does puddle there, and the ice is there in the wintertime. So if we're gonna go down there and do anything, it should be replaced. The discussion originally is the village doesn't have a really good policy on who replaces it. Like some communities, the homeowner buys the piece of pipe the first time, and then it gets put in, and then the municipal entity maintains it from then on. Because it's in their best interest to keep water off the road and go underneath.
That's true.
We don't have, it was kind of a, we put in for something we didn't, that was about timeframe, I'm sure that it was put in.
North Bennington definitely put it
So
in.
who-
It wasn't Kendall Ridge.
Who's in charge of maintaining
Yeah.
and pay for it?
so we'll have that discussion. I know that there is probably gonna be a house built a little further down around that corner. So that maybe upgrading the drainage all along that area is gonna be necessary to keep that road safe on that blind turn in the winter. So I think looking at the whole thing, we could start by just pulling the culvert out.
You can pull it, might as well put it on back in,
Cause you've got the.
because you're already there.
Well, so I'll let you guys figure that all out. But it sounds like we could reach some sort of
Okay.
agreement somehow.
Yeah, but we want to break the rest of the road. We're kind of waiting to see what happens down here before we get the rest of the driveway done. That's why.
Because at this point, so, just, as Norm said, it's supposed to be a through road.
It's never been a through
No,
road.
it was not, it was Mr. Rich's entire property,
All of
and then the road was a right-of-way to the pieces that he sold.
Yeah, but as it's listed on the maps, it was a road
It
because,
never has been a road.
because we have two roads with the same name.
Yeah.
Right, actually, they call it Rich Lane
And
on
the-
one
and Rich
side
Heights.
where Perkins and Legacy's the house is. My side is Rich Heights.
So the maps are not correct.
No, they're not. They never have.
That stops it.
What's that? That's just not a picture. We're talking about like,
The actual,
not picture maps, like maps that are.
Right.
plat for when I bought the house,
Yeah.
that says that it's a right-of-way, and when I bought the house, I had to, agree that they had the right to
That's right.
use it, so.
So I guess the question is, in terms of like who pays for what, if it's a right of way, it's actually a driveway and not a road, because there's only one piece of property it goes
It
to.
always used to be a road, and we wrote River Road. When 911 came in, for some reason, they connected it and named it that way.
Yeah.
And it confuses everybody.
Yeah.
Police officers, rescue squad, they all get confused.
So I think that is kind of define what it is, because technically if you look at it, because that's what we were talking about the other day, it's basically a right of way driveway.
Yeah, it goes to two houses, but it says private on the
Oh,
side.
I have two houses there. I thought it was all the one, I thought it was all.
First in line.
Yeah, I have a driveway
things so we can kind of
If
get
you're
it out.
driving in during mud season, you will sink.
Yeah.
FedEx has found out, oil people, garbage people, they think they're taking a shortcut, and they get in there and they don't get out. So,
It would be okay, I mean, we don't object about any emergencies that need to go through.
Yeah, no.
But we've had some trouble with some newer neighbors who think it'd be really nice to ride motorcycles really fast.
Well, I was confused because we looked at it, and when we were looking at it, we saw a patch of grass,
go to,
And then-
911 did that.
two of the hip.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to take a quick walk up there tomorrow when we're down there looking at it. Great,
Thank you.
sure,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
8 tomorrow? 8?
Yep.
Let's see, I think the only other item that we had advance notice of was the North Bennington Outdoor Sculpture Show, and
Yeah,
Mr. Ciccarello is here.
coming on, end of the month. So, a couple of things about that. First of all, Nick from Pangea has donated some money, and we would like to put a sculpture down there by Pangea. But the only real place to put it is on the property as you go in the driveway on the left-hand side, which belongs to the town.
Oh, yeah.
I hear that's a pocket park.
I think we had discussed placing sculptures there.
I think we have in the past, actually. There were times we had them in the park
That's-
across the street from that.
Well,
That's
it's
absolutely
totally
fine.
not wide. We're working on the map right now. I was working with Matt and Amy this morning, and we thought, well, as long as I'm coming here today, I should check it out.
So would it be somewhere in front of the basswood tree there, or?
Yeah, it's in front of the tree. Like on the left-hand side of the driveway driving in, there's a spot in between the two trees, which is, pretty clear.
Fine by me.
Yeah? Okay, good, that was easy. Let's see, what else do I got in here?
Is there any objection from the trustee?
No.
Figured someone would
Yeah,
jack
would you mind just sitting in
Yeah,
that
I
chair?
can stand it, don't. Okay, the other thing is, I have heard that the juried prize for the one sculpture that was gonna get paid was accepted, but I never personally heard that, and Bob Howe told me he was at a meeting and it was okay.
It was.
It's actually on the road tonight.
Okay, so there's a little bit of
It was on
logistics
the warrant,
around
yeah.
that. Is that true?
So it's already been previously approved before, and then we had it for payment on the warrant tonight, so the check has been issued for $500.
It's right here.
So we
I'm gonna just run away.
put on there that it was for the,
I understand. All that money, the check should have been to Parent Rec. Okay.
Never would have thought.
No, not all of our money for the sculpture show goes through Parent Rec.
As a nonprofit.
Yeah, because they're, but that's all right, I'll just write a check to Parent Rec, it's no problem. Okay,
thank you.
so then there's a little bit of logistics around that, like when it would be difficult, although possible, to decide which piece is gonna get chosen before the opening. The reason it would be difficult is because probably not everything will be set up until Friday.
Right.
So if, that would have to happen on Saturday morning, I'm not sure if you're willing to do that. If you're not, we'll just decide when to do it and we'll just tell the person by an email. But would be, this year we're gonna have like announcements and a tour at 5 o'clock and, I'm gonna thank people and all that kind of stuff. And if we could announce it then, it'd be great.
This would be 8 AM on June 29th, Saturday, June 29th?
Yes, we do 5 PM. We will announce it at 5.
Friday, right?
No,
Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
It's always Saturday, June 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that's up to you guys. I also thank you very much, by the way.
Are we gonna be the jury?
I always accept checks, even if they're made out. So anyhow, the thing is, I was thinking maybe Aaron, John, and maybe Jamie Franklin would want it, maybe you'd want somebody off the board to, or whoever. It's up to you guys. Just a suggestion.
I'm good with that, John. You?
I can ask
Jamie?
Jamie.
Yeah.
I'll ask him and I'll
mean, if you guys
see you all.
Yeah.
All right, so that's,
For doing it the morning of Saturday.
if you joined on the morning,
Yeah.
that would be nice. Well, I think it'd be a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
That would be great.
Okay, so that's
As
the
long as
second.
everyone understands I have pretty progressive taste in art, so just warning you.
Well, I think between three people we should be, and you know, it's gonna be here in front of me, so yeah, I think, you know.
Oh, it's gonna be, that's right, it's gonna end.
It's gonna be moved in November, right?
Okay.
A place, yeah, what of your choosing here. The other question is just a simple thing, this is now more like, I guess, in your ballpark. What, is this, cherry picker gonna be gone by June 29th with any luck?
Yes.
We
Yes?
sure hope so.
Yes.
It's been there a lot longer.
It's been a long time.
The project is, and this is sort of bleeding into another issue, but as long as we're discussing it, we might as well discuss it. But that project has a deadline of June 15th. So they can't, the actual work is not going to go past June 15th at this
Well, it
point.
looks like they're making headway up there. I mean, it looks
I think
like
we're getting close.
Well, I mean, he went from nothing to basically having, 90% of the chimney back in 2 days. So,
They didn't have the bricks for a long time, and special order, and then the rain.
What rain?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
in the mortar.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, it's looking very good. I just thought it would be good to ask that question. We were talking about that today.
But yeah, there's no expectation that that's here past the 15th.
Throw a couple things on there, I think it'd make a great sculpture with a few things added to it.
were you thinking about it in terms of optics, or did you want to maybe use it for the installation of some sculpture?
The chimney?
No, the unit,
Oh, the cherry picker?
yeah.
Well, I'd like to bring it over to my house.
No doubt.
No,
You just wanted it out here.
I was gonna be there, because we're gonna be putting stuff in that vicinity, and I just wanted to be there. That's all. Okay, that's great. So, the other thing, I have an agenda here, I'm sorry.
Except this is,
We don't have to decide this now, but, we're happy to say that we got the money from the state for the kiosk and the signage, $15,000 from the Vermont Arts Council.
Nice.
$3,000 from the town, the village, excuse me, and $2,500 from the fund from the Bennington.
That's great.
So, that's good. So the project is funded and the money is in Lake Perrin's coffers at the moment. But we don't know where we're gonna put this. So if you would like, if any of you would like to have an appointment, to have a meeting, to walk around and look at some sites for this, or if you want to decide on your own.
Do you have ideas?
Oh, yeah, I want to put it on the left-hand side of Veterans Park, where those trees got, where the hedges got cut down, like in that area. You walk down the sidewalk,
Yep.
on the left-hand side, there's a spot there. Then the one sign, then there's two signs. One sign could go in that corner by Water Street and, what's the name of that?
West Street?
That's the W2. Right down here as you go up to the grade school.
West Street.
That little.
West Street.
What's the name of that street?
West.
West.
Yeah, West and Miller. On that corner.
Library, oh, the other corner across.
Across.
In that triangle there.
Yep.
This signage won't take up a lot of room. I mean, the post, it will be no more than a couple of feet. And then it's up for grabs where the other one goes. It could go by the Moose in that vicinity. Well, you guys understand, right? There's gonna be like a post, it won't be that simple, because it's gonna be a little more sculptural, but then there are signs pointing different ways that point to different things in town. So one will go to Water and West, and it's up to where the other one goes, although it probably is a good place next to that triangle by the Eddington house there. Although there is a lot of stuff there.
There is, and we don't own it.
Oh, you don't know that? Who does all?
You mean where the moose?
I'm not sure I guess we, maybe.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it, but,
So nothing in the actual park with the fountain, with the drinking fountain?
I think we do.
Yeah, that's where he wants that kiosk. To the left, but,
no, it's not anything near the drinking fountain.
right,
But it's in that park. It's not in towards
yes, yeah.
If you walk in there, there's,
where the hydrangeas were cut.
yeah, there's a lot of room over there.
Well, they will grow back.
Well, it's not really that hedge that's the problem,
Okay.
really.
There was a
Because
tree.
that would be behind the kiosk. Even if they grow back, you know.
Gotcha.
It's still, in that corner there isn't really anything. All the veteran stuff is on the right-hand side of the sidewalk. All the memorial stuff is on the right-hand side of the sidewalk. On the left-hand side, there isn't anything except, biomass or whatever, trees and shrubs.
So do the trustees feel they have a reasonable idea of where the proposed sites are for the kiosk and the 2 signs?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful though, I would be happy to go down there and have you, because then we could get his idea of where it is,
Yeah.
what footprint it would have.
A stake in the ground.
For the purposes of, right now, though, I'm just asking, it does not seem to me that there's any objection at this stage to those proposed sites with the scope of the project as we understand it now. I think the project may change, you may come up with some other idea.
The project is not gonna change that much. I mean, it's a little different than the model,
Right.
absolutely, but the actual footprint and the concept is not gonna change.
But as it stands now, I don't hear any objection to any of that.
Okay, just to, fill it out. I think part of what would happen is that, there would be a concrete pad board there.
I would
think
think.
it'd be the best thing to do is to have the kiosk on a pad. The exact dimensions of the pad, I don't know, what it would be, 8 by 16 or something like that. Something like that, it would be significant. But it's probably better than just having it on the grass. So besides that, I don't see anywhere else for it to really go.
We had talked at one point, you suggested maybe a tree needed to be removed there. Is that still the case?
It's possible, but it wouldn't hurt to have one of those small trees gone, but it's not necessary. We could just go a little closer to the sidewalk, and then that tree would be in the way, but it wouldn't hurt. We just have to go down there and look at it.
Okay.
I mean, you can't really talk about it without looking at it.
Yeah, I can't,
Yeah, you can't.
you can't visualize it.
And the other thing is, I can't even begin this project until August.
Right.
So, it's not like it has to happen tomorrow. I'm just here to kind of, move the ball a little bit.
So is there somebody that's willing to look at the sites with Joe?
I'd be happy to, yeah.
I think we'd all like to.
Yeah.
Do you have all of our emails, or do you just have mine? I know you have
I
mine
have,
and Matthew's.
I have Aaron's, I have yours, I have Matt's.
Okay, so
Thank you,
I'll send you an email with all of
I
us,
have yours? Oh, awesome.
and then if you would just shoot a time out, and we'll see,
Yeah, great.
and whoever can make it.
Yep.
Anytime, sometime in July or something.
We could do it a half hour before the meeting in July. Would that make sense?
Oh, that's a good one,
Yeah.
that's a meeting in July.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The second Tuesday.
well, hold on now.
The ninth.
We don't know that.
You going around on
It's
the
the
night?
first Tuesday after the first Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's still the ninth.
It could be the second Tuesday though, but it's not always.
It's the 9th.
Once in a blue moon.
I will not be here that evening, but that's fine, because I have a pretty good sense of this.
You mean you will not be here for this
No, wait a
meeting?
minute.
Right.
It's not, isn't it?
The first,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it is.
First Wednesday, the 3rd, so it would be the 9th, yep.
So tentatively, maybe we meet there at 6:30
On the
on
ninth?
the 9th.
Okay, I'll put it on my calendar, I'll send, and when John sends it, I'll just confirm that with everybody. I think that's a great idea, meeting there before the.
Yeah.
Because we'll expect,
Right, getting everybody in one place,
and there's no time crunch. So-
And not to mention, we can actually make an announcement at the meeting that
That would,
this has been approved, it is, it's,
in my
Sounds good.
calendar.
I see you have the drum press over at VAE here. That's good. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I always enjoy coming to these things, you guys are always so easy to get along with.
Usually.
And,
So what about some more particulars of the day of the park, opening,
you want the sculpture show?
sculpture show? Do you want this to be open? Will there be a proctor in here somehow, or like we've done in the past?
What happens is usually hire somebody to sit here so we can use the bathroom. The opening is 4 to 8 on June 29th, Saturday, June 29th. And same as always.
You're not gonna be using any of the other indoor space?
Yeah. There's gonna be a show in the train station gallery.
Okay.
Drawings and some glass work.
And then also you'll be positioning some stuff out here again on.
But it won't be any different than it has been. You know, we'll have bases on the grass, and there'll be one piece, which I asked the guy to paint the bottom of the base to avoid rust, which I'm sorry that the rust got there. No, seriously, I asked the guy, and he said, yeah. I said, if he's painting a piece anyhow, so we have a steel piece that's going on that bump there.
Mhm.
And it would be black, and the whole thing would be painted. So, we try to not get in other people's way and cause damage, but sometimes things happen.
We appreciate it.
Suggestion,
Yes.
that day corresponds with the first annual Bennington Pride Parade,
Don't I know that?
and you should definitely be
Yeah.
cross-advertising.
I don't know how exactly how that will, I know the parade is at 1 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? And then there's events after that, but it seems to be over at 5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I think you'll get some crossover if.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah,
And then the other thing is, the high school kids are having, like an LGBT thing down at the left bank.
Good.
Like a prom.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that they walk up, and we were hoping to say something positive to them. But that was, Matt Perry's working on that.
Good.
So we're hoping that happens, because I didn't know that until I read it in the newspaper, like last week.
yeah.
I was like, because there's something going on at Park Pacola that day too. But you know what, they're only selling summer weekends.
Right.
Yeah.
And, everybody's getting married and, everything else, so. But, thank you for that, and if you want to help me with that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any, online, well, other than that, but
I have an e-card.
you do?
I have a press release.
Okay.
I'd be happy to send them all
Yeah.
to you, but I don't have your email right now.
I
That's
sent it,
okay.
yeah, I sent
Okay,
it.
is anybody want one of these?
Got one.
Go ahead.
I'll
Okay.
take one for.
Yeah, and, sorry about the tent. You know what happened with that? Matt Perry bought a tent. You don't care.
Okay.
I thought you wouldn't care, because we,
The village school also has 3 pieces in the show. The students worked with Bennington College.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah,
faculty
yeah.
And students
Right.
to create 3
that's right.
That's great.
sculptures that
Oh,
are
wow.
going to be in the show, which is
Yeah,
cool.
we have
So
a
it's a nice
collaboration between
Between BAE.
the grade school.
Yeah.
Great.
The work looks really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And they're all on concrete bases, and we're planning on putting them together, like right here,
Yeah.
with some very specific signage about the project. And it was a great,
Yeah,
but you know,
it's great.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if this is the time for all this, but what frustrates me about that is that I really thought we could get that story in the banner. It's a great story.
Yeah.
There were great photographs, and they just didn't, we sent it to the
You sent it
press
to
and
them
didn't
and-
respond like at all. And I thought the fact that the grade school's involved, the college was involved.
Yeah, I'm
The
surprised.
kid, it's about little kids, there was some cute pictures.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
surprised.
I'm surprised.
Maybe closer to the show opening, maybe they would, I don't know.
Well, we sent it out twice,
Yeah.
so I don't know what happened. I don't know what else I can do.
It was on the Bennington College website, so.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
the college did a good job
Yeah.
of, you know, taking pictures and writing it up and all that, it's great.
Well, thank you very much for,
I won't take any more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
all right. So, a sort of citizen comment is that we do have, just as a reminder, the Bennington and North Bennington Townwide Tag Sale Day
Yeah.
on July 13th from 9 to 4. So if anybody wants to participate in the tag sale for that Saturday, you can actually register your address for $5, and that way you're placed on a map so that everybody that's going around hitting up yard sales can know where you are. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and that's something that the roundtable's been working
If
on.
people don't register and have the map on their device, they can pick up maps at the McCullough Library.
Oh, great.
It's gonna have maps there, and they're also
Yes.
borrowing, thanks to Norm, the village tent. And they're gonna be a little shaded station for people, any walkers, to sit and rest.
Sounds like it's gonna be a nice day. And
It was very successful in Bennington this year. We didn't do well Bennington last time.
Yeah, we're trying to piggyback with them, so
Right.
it's a collaboration and everyone can
Yeah.
benefit.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
anybody else have comments from citizens to share in the meeting, or? There are, yeah, okay, so how about we move to the treasurer's report?
We can do that, if you'll take one. Please pass that along. Sorry, I forgot to attach to the emailed reports what our cash balances are. So you can see right now, we have about just under $190,000 in the bank. That is after all of our year-end reserves are funded. So everything is funded. So below you can see under the restricted funds, that is the balance as we go into the next year where all of our funds reside. That's that. The second thing that I had sent out was the budget versus actual report. This will be final when we get all the, the final main bills in. Right now, there's not a lot that's utterly alarming. Clearly, if you look at the second page, we still have $50,000 for bills yet to come in for anything that we'll do on the road repair. That's the biggest expense yet to be done in the budget. There are a couple of places that have gone over budget this year. It's still too early. I don't think that in total, net in total for the village, that there's going to be anything of concern. But certainly the heat bills for all locations were significantly higher than budgeted. So that's something we'll have to look at a little bit when we get to another 6 months from now in looking at things. And then there's always those few unexpected things that come up. But right now, when you net in the revenues that go against some of these expense accounts, we're right about where we should be. If there are projects that come in, or if there are bills that you know of that are going to come in, please get them to Lori as soon as we can. I don't know if you're going to be buying anything for the park this year.
Well, I just found out, It'd be minor, maybe a swing.
Okay.
When the
Nothing
swings got
big.
broken
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
nothing will go,
Okay.
nothing in the next couple of weeks.
We did pay a big bill to Doxy for the roof, so we'll get funds to offset that soon. Norm's got the form out to get reimbursed for some of that minor culvert work that was done. And
So on your report, the budget actual year-to-date, if you go all the way down to page 3 of 4,
go down to 3 of 4.
it says net operating revenue, is that where it's coming in at 100%? 101?
No, what you want to do is look at our
Four.
total expenses, our total expenditures, which it looks like we're over $3,000 over in total expenditures, but then there's about $65,000 in revenue that will offset that. So there's about $60,000 left in budget to get be expended before we hit the limit there. And the most of that is in
So down here was total expenditures, right?
I haven't yet figured out how to
Okay.
throw certain revenue lines against certain expense lines, and I don't want to merge them together, keep them showing as separate. And then below that is the grant revenue and expenses, neither of which we have a budget.
So total expenditures, is that, how far does that tally down from the whole thing?
Yes, those total expenditures are everything. 570,000 is what was budgeted. We have spent through 5/31, through everything approved today, 573, almost 574.
Okay.
But we also have all of the state aid monies.
Right.
And all of those all of those revenues that.
But that's what we want, right? I mean, at this time of year, we want to be at 100% or close to it.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we don't want to be coming out with a big
Right.
balance, but we also don't want to be
Right, but what
going
I'm, yes,
way
exactly,
over
what I'm trying to say is, when you take those, the revenues other than the taxes, and minus them from here, we've got about $60,000 yet to spend, which is exactly what we want, because we've got the road projects.
Right.
So.
Gotcha. Okay, great, thank you very
we're
much.
where we want to be.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? I haven't heard anything from our accountant, have you?
I answered the last of the questions. There was a couple of questions with regards to delinquent taxes collected. That was a couple of weeks ago. That was right before I went on vacation, or
Okay,
I don't know.
so there are a little bit of,
That was the last of the things that to be done, so
Okay.
I would expect it's imminent.
all right, excellent. And should we move on to the highway? Any objection to moving on to highway? Okay, Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, I mean, as Mary said, we had a kind of ambitious paving year this year. I believe that the work will start after school ends, within a reasonable amount of time on School Street. And that'll be paved. We're looking at it around middle of August timeframe to do most of our paving. We have West Street, School Street, and Royal, the bottom, and then Ace's Way. We're just gonna put a top coat on that, up on the top of the two roads.
And
We're
Susan Taylor
already-
too, or just Aces?
What's that?
Susan Taylor Way as well, or just Aces Lane?
No, so I believe we did, I believe we voted
I
on the
think it
whole
was on
thing,
there.
to do both of them.
Yeah.
Just put basically, just a top coat, a shim, just to, make it all perfect. West Streets, the side's been scalped, both sides, we've had it seeded. Hopefully the rain last night didn't wash most of it away. So really waiting. And that's about it. We gotta put our guardrail up on Pleasant Street, so that's done. We gotta go back in and just fill a couple little divots, and that'll be done, and then just regular summer.
How did the West Street was hydro seeded, right? And who did that?
CNC Landscaping did that.
Okay, so we just hired a contractor to do that? And so if there's problems with that, how do we deal with that? Just hire them again, or would you try to patch it with?
Let's hope we don't have problems with it. Let's just hope for the best. I think we've already had good success with them. Sometimes it looks a little weird, but let's give it a weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea with it, is that it gets in there quick and.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
You can see little pieces of it coming out. I mean, nobody can fight off torrential rain, but
right.
Let's hope we, this morning was a nice little soak of rain, and, it's getting watered, and
Yeah.
let's hope it goes.
And your opinion on the overly ditching, you satisfied with that project?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it had come out a little bit better, but time restraints and a couple other things. We got screwed up because of the stupid tree.
Yeah.
The grass is growing in there, and that's good enough for the state.
Okay.
They're all happy.
Would that typically go a bit deeper?
Wouldn't go deeper, it would just go back into the bank.
A little further.
It's just another project.
But that's something we could do the next time we do it?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, great.
Probably before that road was paved.
Yeah.
We would do the same thing, but only on one side of the street. On the side that Mary lives, it's pretty much where it needs to be.
I know it's not necessarily our jurisdiction, but I did notice there's pretty significant potholes just on the other side of the paving on West Street. Not as you go down, but like literally right at the end of the pavement.
On the pavement or on the dirt?
On the dirt. So I don't know if we, might just do something, or if we notify Bennington or what, or actually, is that Shasberry or?
No, that's
Bennington, yeah. But anyway, that's
I know they've been working on that road,
yeah.
ditching and stuff. They're probably getting ready to get it all ditched and then graded, so.
Yeah, I don't know if they're aware of
They're
that
probably,
particular.
well, they've been driving through them every day, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they should be then.
I'm sure they're aware.
All right. I wouldn't be surprised if you had a call from somebody on that one, though. I didn't, I just was walking, but somebody definitely had an issue of going over that hole. Any questions for highway? We do,
I guess-
yeah, oh.
I was, Mr. Rowland, who was gonna do
What's that?
the field, surveying the field down there, he's just getting done with lacrosse, and I'm just getting done with soccer, so we're trying to coordinate something, but he's still doing that.
Some unforeseen circumstances, that's probably out of our realm right now.
So that's no longer something that's gonna
I
happen
think
this
we
summer?
should look at it, but it depends on depends on how much work.
Okay, well, what he does isn't gonna go away, so if we get it done, at least we know where we're at.
That's right, set some
Okay.
benchmarks and.
So, yeah, we're still trying to schedule it between his and mine. It hasn't worked out, but we're still working on it.
So, Mr. Bull's given us his notification that he's accepted a position at the water department, so, we're really sad to see him go from the village side, but glad that he's not going so far that, he's actually out of the village. He's just moving to the water side. But that definitely means that we need to be, putting our feelers out there and making sure we get some good candidates to apply for the position, which has been advertised in the banner, but we'll need to, I know that, I think the banner works with Monster, but we'd like to make sure that we get it on all sort
So
of
it's
internet
in the banner,
platforms.
in Monster and Indeed. And
Okay,
that's
great.
As far as I went.
Yeah,
I couldn't figure out Vermont Trans bulletin board that you
Okay.
had mentioned, but I didn't spend a lot of time trying to figure it out yet.
okay. Did, Norm, do you know how things get posted on that, or somebody over on Rome Road that we could call to get it on? What's the, don't we have a couple of guys that we work
Chris
with?
Taft is,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
he's the state representative for the district, but I mean, I don't believe he posts stuff on his hiring and, you know, what pages.
I thought they had a mess, or some, like a, oh, that would be, if they're hiring a position, they have a place to post it or something?
More than likely through their web, they go through the unemployment,
Okay, so
through the state run.
I wonder if we could do that, right? We could probably do Department of Labor.
You can.
But also, I was thinking Craigslist too might be a good place to post.
I think anybody's looking for a job these days are gonna be looking at
I know,
Indeed or
I think we
Monster
should wait
or.
and see. I mean, just in my experience, I think you might want to wait. It's on a few right now.
Yeah. See what we
And
get.
I think you want some serious, you know,
As opposed to anybody.
which,
I
I
gotcha.
mean, if you're careful, if you're not careful, you'll get.
Okay.
I went through that with our pre-K. you know,
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, if we don't get any response, then we'll have to, you know, make sure we're doing everything we can, but.
And
if we-
certainly when they're supposed to email me or pick up, there's a couple different ways, but it's kind of all through me. I
Yeah.
will absolutely let you know what I get.
Great.
Or how many I get or whatever.
Okay, excellent.
She set a closing date?
I did the 20th of June, which is next Wednesday.
Okay.
So it's over a week,
Great.
which I think is enough time for you to start.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
John?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Did you hear anything back from the Bennington police on, as to whether they had a response for the 40 Main Street here?
I did not, no, I was gonna ask, I was asking you, I had that to ask you as well, if you had, because you had sent a fax, right?
No, they do not respond. I
Ignore
left
the
a
fax.
message at what they told me was their legal department. I have heard nothing, but I will tell you that's the history of these companies. That they, for whatever reason, they don't want you to know who they are.
So, I think we do, want to pursue our legal options with that, and, I think that's one of the areas that we typically go in executive session to
Okay.
discuss, as far as a legal strategy. So I
Okay.
think I'll ask for a brief executive session at the end of the, meeting tonight, just to discuss what legal options we might have on 40 Main Street. Because I want to be as, you know, transparent as I can about that's the issue, is that we're not getting any response on a $2,000 bill that we had to spend on that property so far. You know, I mean, it's not done. It's obviously still sitting there. But, yeah, we definitely want to seek compensation there. Any other comments before we move to the DRB? Yeah, thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Appreciate your being here tonight.
Thanks, Norm.
Thank you.
Mr. Damon, are there any issues before the Development Review Board or a meeting scheduled at any point, or?
We don't have a meeting scheduled
Okay.
yet, but we may have for July.
Okay. And so, thank you for coming tonight, and obviously, if there's any issues that we bring up in our meeting that you think are relevant to the Development Review Board, we'd welcome that to be shared with them. I'd update them as well. I think do we send them a copy of the minutes, or?
I don't, oh, do you want a copy of it?
That'd be enough.
No.
Well,
Do we send who a copy of the minutes?
the chair of the DRB. I know we do Bennington, right?
No, we send Bennington minutes, but I don't send.
Okay. Well, anyway, if they're interested in minutes, you can let me know, but we just want to make sure the communication is going there, so, which I think it is. And nothing from the planning commission, I assume? And any comment from the fire department?
Yes, I'd like to meet with you guys after the meeting is over if I can.
Okay, is it relating to a contractual issue with the village, or
We've had something.
a legal issue?
No. It's
Okay.
just an authorization to
Oh,
replace something that is broke, so.
okay,
And it's gonna take quite a bit of money to fix it, so.
okay. So I don't see that would,
That needs to be publicly discussed.
there wouldn't be any reason that it would need to be an executive session, but if you're here just to sort of deliver either a form or a notice or something like that, then certainly you can do that whenever you want to, and then
I mean, if you
we,
guys wanna do it now, I'll come up now. The chief is in another meeting.
okay,
It's something that has to be done pretty soon.
okay. Yeah, I mean, and I don't, the reason that you would do a private session that was not on the record would be that if for some reason the discussion of the cost or the contract or something like that would put somebody in an unfair position, like if we were trying to negotiate somebody's contract and we discussed it on TV, then everybody would know what they were getting and they could ask for something different. But in this case, if it's just a matter of, breaking certain news to us, that's totally fine. You can.
Well, it's actually replacing the brush truck.
Okay.
The truck that pulls the water rescue.
Yep. Yep.
It won't pass inspection.
Okay.
The floors by the door and everything are all rusted out.
Yeah.
I know the department bought that truck like 8 years ago.
Okay. So a significant piece of equipment like a frontline piece of equipment. So it's got a pretty serious price tag on it.
Wasn't that gifted to the department?
No.
That truck?
No, we bought that with the donation money.
Did you buy it new?
So essentially.
Was it about new?
No, that
Oh,
was
just
bought
like,
by Asbury.
in 8 years, if it rusted out, we should look at something different this time.
So we're looking to buy something that's gonna last about 20 years.
Okay.
Instead of,
And what about the equipment that's on the truck?
that's gonna come off and go on the new one.
Okay, so you'd be looking for something that could be fit to.
Well, we're looking, it's F-250, four-wheel drive,
Yep.
single cab.
But does it have to have like trail rating or like under, a certain lift or undercarriage?
That's why we have to go with, because of the tank that's on the back of it, that's why we have to go with a higher,
Yeah,
the F-250, so it's got extra
yeah,
puff to it in the back,
yeah,
so.
okay.
So timeline and ballpark and
Well, the inspection runs out in 2 weeks, so we went over,
Do you know, just that, so it's cold water rescue is what North Bennington has a
The water
specialty
rescue
in?
trailer is pulled by the brush truck, and it also is a brush truck.
But does the brush a brush truck to me has a sort of a firefighting purpose as well, that, you know, we're very close to the national forest, and I don't know, does it have some sort of utility as like a, do we get calls to utilize that truck in other ways?
We do.
Like for fires, like forest fires or brush fires or something like
Brush
that?
fires down to White Creek, North Hoosick, Arlington, we go to Arlington.
Okay.
Sometimes go to Woodford.
Okay. So that's where I'm looking for.
And we used it a couple times in our own village this year, so.
Okay.
It does get used. And we've had, 1, 2, 3 rescues, cold water rescues this year.
Yeah.
One was the Bennington just recently.
Yeah.
So.
I said at the last meeting, the response time to that one was incredible. I couldn't believe that. I think he must have already been there, but it was pretty amazing.
And we can also use that to fill trucks if we have a big fire. We can use that to fill trucks from a water source also, so.
Okay, well, you know, we obviously can't approve anything that's not, you know, doesn't have, isn't spec'd out yet, but thank you for letting us know that that's gonna be coming
Sorry?
up.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Are you guys in the process of getting bids and?
We have to get your approval first before we can do that. We've already talked with our treasurer.
No.
No, I mean, we had talked about replacing the brush truck down the road.
I don't, okay, maybe,
When you met us at the firehouse last night?
I did, when? Like a year ago?
Yeah, it was about that.
I don't remember, but not to say that we didn't.
Okay.
What I'm seeing again is kind of an issue related to out budgeting of things, and then just getting surprised by a truck that's losing its inspection in 2 weeks, which, you know, maybe was something that could have been foreseen.
Well, there's things that go across, okay? So, I mean, unless you get underneath there and look at it.
Yeah.
It just happened, one of the guys got in and it's floating.
Yeah, I mean, the problem right now is if it runs out in 2 weeks, we don't meet for another 4 weeks, which means you're definitely, and it's gonna take you a while to get bids and everything else, so you're gonna be without a truck for a few months. Unfortunately, I mean, just in the terms of getting the bids and getting everything else, so I think.
And we're at the end of the year of a budget where there is no money, so the only money I can see really being used for that is your fire truck reserve fund.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that delays the purchase of a new fire truck, I guess, but if this is also a fire truck, then that's part of the
Reserve.
Part of the deal. You got 110 grand in there.
Yep.
Right, and you're due to replace 5.5 in 2020.
Well, you might be due to do a lot of things, but we got hit last year with that 20-some thousand plus with the air packs. It was completely out of, you know, wasn't budgeted, and we, as much as we might like to do it, it just isn't there. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board, but I have no idea what you're talking about in terms of cost for a truck like that. Are you talking new? Sounds like it. You might need to consider something not new as a stopgap, and then look to budgeting for those kinds of, you know, eventualities.
Well, I mean, the purpose of, is to get a truck that lasts, you know, and we got 8 years out of this truck, you know, so we just don't want to keep having to buy something.
Right.
You know.
But the big thing is if, like we're trying to do now for the villages, we've got a plan on, we know we're gonna get a certain amount of life out of a vehicle. So we start budgeting for that the day we buy the new one. And so we look out a certain number of years on, so if you, in your research, can figure out what you've got for inventory, when you're gonna have to replace it. And the idea is you try to stagger those out, so we're not looking at replacing 3 trucks in a 4-year period, because we can't do that. So something like this, I mean, and I know that this is probably a surprise to you too, that you walked in and realized that you're out without a truck in 2 weeks, but you gotta realize, sitting here and hearing that in 2 weeks, I can't imagine this is any less than $60,000 to $80,000 you're talking about for a truck.
Oh, no, no. No.
What kind of truck is that?
I'll be talking probably 30,000.
Oh, so you're just talking about a bare truck?
Here, just
Okay.
have 250, go to Ford garage.
And what's our total budget for a village our size is hard to be sprung upon. So it would really help if we thought that you guys had kind of a plan in place and kind of an inventory and a replacement schedule and which is, we're just getting to this point too. I mean, this isn't necessarily everyone, but we're very good at this.
That doesn't work either because when we bought 5 years ago, I mean, we're only putting $25,000 away. A fire truck costs 3,000 or 300,000 to 400,000.
Yeah, but that's still what you want to do is, and we realize that too, like we don't save enough money to buy a vehicle.
Right.
We save enough money to put a good chunk of money down, and then we finance the rest.
And
That's our plan. So it's not something that we sit in a meeting and say, hey, next month we've got to buy a new truck, what do we have? It's, we plug away, and then we look at it and say, okay, we know that in a few years we're going to have to, where do we sit with money? We start looking at the costs, and then we start figuring out where the money's going to come from. So it's just a thought that, you guys ought to get together and really get a good idea of what your inventory is and a good idea of when things are gonna start to come up and figure out how you can, what we did in the process was we knew we had to replace a couple of trucks in a short period of time. So we figured out which one we had to replace sooner and we stretched the other one beyond what we thought we should. But that's the only way to get into a good schedule of replacement. And that's what we, with equipment like you're talking, without a replacement schedule, or at least an approximate, that there's no way we can.
Right.
We can.
If you take the money that was supposed to go into that, then you should have $200-something thousand in there right now, because the last truck we bought was 5 years ago. So if you put the 25,000 in every year, you should have 225,000 in that truck sinking fund, and you don't. Because you're putting 25,000 away a year.
But 20 is going into your truck, and I can't tell you how long that's been happening. I can tell you it's the last 4 years that I've been working on budgets, but previous to that, I don't know. You have 5,000 a year that goes into your firehouse renovation, and that got drawn down to almost nothing when those stairs got put in. And then a couple of years ago, Matt started a small equipment reserve fund that is not going to be sufficient, but it was just a start of something without having, as they're alluding to, the full schedule of all of the small pieces of equipment when, charted out on a spreadsheet over the period of 10 or 15 years when they would have to be replaced. But what I would one suggestion for right now, just because there is somewhat of a crisis, is to, if the trustees approve to go ahead and get the bids, see what you're talking about, and then probably we would look at applying for a municipal rate at our bank, and we can probably get a fairly low lease. That just gets you out of the weeds right now, but then we should sit down and spreadsheet out all of these little things, whether it's the suits or the helmets or the tanks or the air packs or all this stuff that I don't know about, because you're right. If 2020 is going to be here before we know it, and we're not going to have cash on hand to buy a fire truck.
Right.
But rather than get to there and say, oh gosh, now what do we do? At least we can spreadsheet out where we're gonna be between now and 2020. And do we increase reserves slightly, or do we just plan on what we will have? We will borrow the rest so that we know what our future payments might have to be beyond that. So we can't solve it in one bite, but we could probably do it in bits and pieces. But the imperative is to sit down and spreadsheet out everything that's there and everything that needs to be replaced to the best that you guys can guess.
I mean, once you've replaced 5.5, you've got 15 years before you have to replace.
But I'm not even talking about all that, not just even the two big ones, but we should sit and look at all of that myriad of smaller things that do come up, because that $2,000 that is being put away right now isn't gonna be sufficient to buy the next bunch of air packs, and I don't even know when they're gonna come up. We don't have that spreadsheet yet, so that needs to be built.
I think we did, it looked like we're coming closer to an inventory through the audit process though. Because I think there was more
Yes.
itemized under fire department than I thought that we had as part of the audit process, so.
We can identify things that we bought, but what I would have no clue about is when they need to be replaced. I can't guess for that. If I can guess an accounting life, but I can't guess, you know.
And any equipment you guys buy basically has a relatively accurate shelf life. Like your packs, you have to, by law, some of those things have to be replaced, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent.
Right, but
You've got to replace them on schedule.
15 years, you have to replace it.
So those are the things we've got to match up the inventory we do have together with replacement dates and times, and then what that helps us do is to stagger things out. So we might replace something a little bit early and push something a little bit late, so we know we can gap things out to like every 3 to 5 years is when we're looking at big tickets. The other stuff you can plug way up, but it's.
4-inch hose, that's gotta be replaced this year, which you guys have already set. I believe set money aside for that?
Well, again, it may be in a budget, but there is no spreadsheet that lists the pieces of equipment, what they specifically are. There is a budget for next year, but the specifics of that.
So if that was figured into your budget, then yes, the money's budgeted, but we as a board have no idea like what the money goes to.
Yeah.
We just know that you budgeted so much money for equipment replacement. We couldn't tell you what equipment you're talking about, but those are the things that would be helpful that we knew.
I know there was some discussion of it, and it was noted, but I think what we're all talking about is rather than just know that there's 4-inch hose this year, what about the 4-inch hose next year, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after? It's looking out 10 years, if not 15, at all of the stuff that's under those 4 walls.
Yeah, once you replace a 4-inch hose, that's good for 10 years.
I know, but that's 4-inch hose. Then what about the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece?
So it's not like we know all these things, we just need it on paper that we can see it, because we don't know any of this stuff.
We can work on that.
I can get something together for you guys, and
So I would make a motion to approve their seeking bids on said equipment, possibly understanding the circumstances, you might be looking at some used pieces too. And then come to us as soon as you can with some numbers and then we go from there.
Second.
And we can work on building a spreadsheet.
I got your email.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
I'll take that message back to the chief.
Thank you.
We'll be back to talk to you guys about something else, but it has nothing to do with this.
Thanks.
Bye.
I don't have any report from the water board other than that the project to improve the system, to repair and replace some of the pipe in the system has been approved. and gone out to bid. And I believe it was awarded. Actually, I'm not sure if it's been awarded. I think that the bids were opened and the board is still considering. I think next week they may be making the final decision on whether they're gonna approve it or not. The bids that were made. Okay. So that could start fairly soon if the contract is approved. I don't have any other business other than, I mentioned.
New business or old business?
I don't have either. The only new business was Kevin's Restaurant. We already discussed it, so. Anybody have any?
Old?
Yep, quick.
Old business, sure.
Yeah, I just think, I know we've been talking about ordinances and everything else for years and years and years now, and I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think it's unfair that we just kind of hand it off to somebody and expect them to take care of that. And so many of the issues we're dealing with right now are directly related to ordinances, and we're handcuffed on a lot of what we can do as a board because we don't have our ordinances in order. And I think we've been a little negligent in that, and I think that we have to make it a priority, like starting today, to make a commitment to get whatever we can get done by the next meeting, short of things that we have to develop mapping for, but there's a good percentage of all of our ordinances that in a couple of days that some concerted effort we can get looked at, get the language right, and get the process moving a little quicker, and at least get those to the point where we can get them approved. And then the ones that are more cumbersome, that aren't as pressing, we can put off. But right now, it's just not fair to think that one person can handle that. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get them done, because I think there's a lot of issues right now we're not able to deal with because of it.
I will say that one thing that's gonna be time consuming is that Rob Wilmington wants it all typed in a Word document. Right now, it's in PDF format online, like the Bennington ordinances. So it either has to be, we download a software that transcribes so that it's something that can be edited and we change it the way we want it worded. Or I just found out about a transcription software for your phone that you can orally transcribe, which would take a lot of editing but would be slightly faster. And once we literally just send them to Rob to process, then I think everything will start moving really quickly.
Because we've also hired help, hired your daughter at one point to help you through. I would also be in favor of hiring somebody that is.
Type it.
If that's even faster, I can't imagine it would be all that expensive to get somebody to take whatever we've got, put it and type it out and get it to them. Whatever's quickest, easiest, but I can't imagine that would be that expensive either. But whatever it takes, I just think that we've talked about this, it seems like for years. And every time we get a little momentum, it then goes away.
How many pages? I don't think it'd be that expensive.
Oh, it's about 500.
500 pages, okay.
Who's ours?
The Bennington one is a book this thick. Maybe not 500, but it's quite a few. And some of them may not be relevant to us. The first one in there is to form a historic district board, which then they do reference back to in future ordinances, so some of it will have to be modified to fit our world.
Right.
But yeah, there's quite a hefty amount of retyping that has to happen.
Yeah, okay.
You got that off the site?
Yeah, so my computer.
We'll make it a Word document.
Your
So
computer, legit,
if I have a PDF there, what I downloaded
it'll
from,
translate it?
then it took a little bit for it to read it, but it did
And then that
transcribe
could be
it into a
edited?
Word document.
Well, that makes it a hell of a lot easier.
So I have the, paid for Adobe
Yeah, you have that.
program.
I don't.
Which we could, I think we could purchase that for the village to make it, for us to do that.
Could you just convert them to Word and then send them to me?
I'll consider that.
Yeah.
I'll have to see whether or not that's something that the, is that an expense that the village should incur, or is that just something that one of us can volunteer to do on their own computer, or what, that,
Okay.
Is it too big to, once you have it in Word, to put it in a Google Doc and then everyone can?
Again, there's another issue that concerns me, because
Security?
you put it on, it's a Google Doc, then everyone that accesses that has a Google account, and not only is the document on Google's site, but also everybody has to have an account with Google, and
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure that
Because Rob
Google is North
specifically said
Bennington's best
Word.
friend.
I think if we kept it in Word and we just
But
forwarded
a
the
Google Doc
attachments
is
to
a Word
everybody.
doc.
Yes. I'm not good enough with Google Docs to say yes or no to
It's
that.
just that everybody can get in there and read it and edit it, and it would keep track of who did what.
This is kind of the problem that we have, and why we have the problem is we have, back before all that, I've got stacks of CDs and floppy disks before that.
Yeah.
There are various versions that everybody
Yeah.
But
contributed
it just
to.
might, yeah.
But
If everyone's editing it at the same time, it could get,
Right.
it just, if you lost, I don't know.
And then what we've got to do is make sure that this gets put somewhere.
Well, that's,
That
5 years
all
from
of
now,
our
we can
towns
find
can
it.
find you?
right.
Yeah. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
I mean, to me, as speaking for myself as a member of the trustees, not necessarily as the chair, I would love to have an actual binder of ordinances that are ours, and that, I think that process is known and is traditional and has sort of a precedent to it. And and I think that may be why the town of Bennington does it that way, is that if the ordinances are a binder that is kept by the secretary, anybody could request that and knows how to access that.
Well, they also.
And then what we do is, but I think that what's online is a PDF of that.
Right. But if we could have it online, anyone could access it.
Absolutely, and that should be our goal.
website and all that stuff.
But I don't think that I don't think the online version should be the ordinances. I think that there
It's a
should.
physical document.
Yeah.
What's the software cost to do that?
I think it's probably $200 or $300.
Right. So I would make a motion that we first authorize Mary perhaps to purchase that, or Lori, and
I
then,
think you have to purchase it in an individual computer.
Yes.
Whoever is gonna do it has to purchase it on their computer.
because once you convert it, you can't share it.
You could,
Oh, yeah.
but
The software is on the
somebody has to
computer.
have the software. You don't share the software.
Right, our secretary or treasurer should have that for the
Yeah.
town.
Because then you guys would own it.
Right.
Well,
But we don't have, but
if
they
you
don't have a
wanted me to
computer.
take on that
Well, I
project
need that too.
of getting that and then converting everything and then saving a Word doc and giving everybody, that Word doc, I would do that.
Well-
It would not happen overnight.
And I think that we actually were contemplating maybe having somebody else, contract somebody else to do
You
that
could
as opposed to
okay.
you. But we would need to have them working on a computer that had that program, essentially, is what we'd have
Which
to
they
do.
might already have,
Whoever you buy.
whoever that would be, because it's just Adobe, right?
That's something to consider too, is if we treated it like an independent contractor and said, we need somebody who is able to, translate these documents for us, and that's part of the job description, then that might be cheaper than buying it. Or maybe the same price.
You know a good typist?
I do know a few transcriptionists. Okay, so,
I think we gotta get it in that kind of form where we're all looking at the same thing. We're all deciding then, which we've done before, but which sections are gonna be on the table and which ones aren't in terms of adoption. the capacity to pull in other ordinance, we're not just talking about
I think
Bennington, but looking at all,
we can look at any
Well,
ordinance.
the other thing is that the reason why we're pushing toward aligning with Bennington is that's our enforcement for police, so that
that's right.
they have a consistent idea of what they're enforcing, so.
And if we
I
use the
think
same,
as long as we don't disagree with something in the, if we disagree with something in the Bennington ordinances, we certainly should change it.
Yes.
But if we have no reason to disagree with something, I think we should align with Bennington as much as possible. Because it just makes it makes it easier for everyone involved, whether it's health inspectors, police, any enforcement that we get through the town of Bennington. It would certainly make it easier for them when we just say, yep, our ordinances align with yours with respect to this, and this, and then they can just go and do it.
The hardest one that we have to get through is the first one, which pertains to forming a historic district board or committee. And then they reference that throughout, depending on what ordinance you're working on. It says, and the historic district board will deal with this and this and this. So we don't have necessarily a historic district. It's kind of all historic.
Yeah.
Well, we do
Defined historic district.
we do have a defined historic.
We don't have a board.
We don't have a board for
Well,
it.
not anymore, but I bet there was a board when it was done.
It was probably done by the
Planning commission,
planning
isn't it?
commission.
So we can
Yes.
name the planning commission as our de facto historic board.
well, it's in
I think
their
it was like
ordinance, it says that each member of the commission shall serve for 3 years or thereafter until a successor is named. I think there are other criteria that go along with this specific historic preservation commission as they,
Yeah,
and it
that's
exists
different. It
there,
really-
which is different from what we have as the planning commission, so.
That's where we get into the weeds about this
Yeah.
stuff, but we can even ignore
I've
that
been-
part if you want to get just to
Right.
article so-and-so and
Yep.
and dogs and.
Signs.
Yeah.
So if that, yeah, again, I think the important thing is to really just jump right into the ordinances that we deal with on a more regular basis, and at least get those.
Yes.
Because like you said, some of them are things you, maybe once every 5 years it might come up. We can let those go for a little bit, but we need to,
Can I move that we find someone to transcribe that into a Word document so that it can be done?
I think we're saying we don't need to even do that.
No,
We
we
can
just-
we can get this turned into a Word document.
Yeah.
What we want that person to be is really maybe
How about
Does Bennington not have this as a Word, they only have it as a PDF? Couldn't we just ask Bennington for, I mean, they have to change this at
They have to have it as a Word
I mean,
document.
they
I would
must
think
the,
have-
wanting us to adopt their ordinance.
So
and
what
not
is
want
your
us
Word
just to do
document?
it, so that-
Would a member be
Do you want me
willing
to,
to?
I'm happy, whatever. I'm happy to
Please.
Seek it
be in
out.
touch and ask.
I'm happy to
them.
have you.
Okay,
Do you
right.
know Dan Mox or?
Not really, but I'm happy to write him and see if we could just,
it's David's son.
Yeah,
yeah, I think I met him before.
if you
Yeah.
would, I think that would be your.
I'll just
contact
ask him
person.
first and then we can start there.
Right. And I have his email if you need it.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other old business?
Was there?
And there's no reason that we need to continue the meeting for anybody's,
Well,
Don't we
I
do this
think
to pay
that,
bills?
would you like to look at applications for the position
Yeah.
prior to July?
yes.
And don't we usually continue this meeting for,
We need to pay
Bills
more
before
bills
the end of the
before
fiscal,
end of
right?
June.
okay.
we usually continue this to pay, like,
The
right
June
toward the
meeting,
end
that's
of
right.
June to pay any bills that we want in this.
I'll make a motion to continue the meeting, till date certain, or,
Well,
Yeah, I mean, we can, I would say, after the 20th, yeah, before July, we can put that in, but to continue the meeting.
And you, because you closed, I'm sorry, was it 20th for the applications?
I did.
Yeah, so if
So
we,
what-
sometime
I
after the
think,
20th.
I think we need to go and I think we need to have our executive session first before we continue the meeting. But when we do continue the meeting, I think we need to continue it to a specific date and time so that people know when.
we plan to continue the meeting on the 24th of June, Tuesday,
That's a Monday.
sorry, 25th.
Okay. At 7?
And that's what we will announce after our executive session, in which we will not be breaking any.
Great. So we would, just for people's information, we will make a formal announcement continuing the meeting after the executive session to Tuesday, June 25th at
Can I make that 6 o'clock?
6 PM?
Sure.
Okay. And I would entertain a motion to go into executive session on the issue of employment contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Any objection? Unanimous consent, we'll go into executive session. So this is a Village of North Bennington Trustees meeting, it's 9:19. We've had an extensive conversation about a difficult contract issue, and now we are ready to continue today's meeting until, as we specified earlier, June 25th at 6 PM. So I would entertain a motion to continue the meeting till that date.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Boudreau, seconded by Ms. Kinney, and without any objection, we'll consider the meeting to be continued until that date. Thank you. Thank you very much.